Okay. All right. So I'm glad I have my phone with me because I'm reading off Lynn's agenda here. So first of all, the K4 panel. This was something again that came up at the ambassadors committee meeting. Was that we really see elementary as an important focus around Globe, and that it really did warrant having a group of its own to look at how Globe can be used in the elementary area. And so what we wanted to do was really focus around that particular aspect. So Lynn is the chair of this particular group. Lynn here at the University of Arkansas. She's the partner down there. And then I'm also on that particular group. And then Robin from Texas is on that group. And I think there's one other person, and I can't remember who it is right now. But okay. And Pat Shane. Okay. And so what we started to do, and again we had a teleconference before we came to the meeting to really look at how do we energize Elementary Globe as part of within the larger Globe aspect. So one of the things that we started doing internally as a group is that Lynn put up a wiki so that we could actually start putting some of the materials that each of the groups that each of the persons that are on this committee could actually populate some of that wiki with some of the materials that we already had. And it was also allowing the committee to have a discussion area where we could talk about specific ideas or so on that we were looking at in how to really get Elementary Globe up and running. Lynn did actually create a survey, which Teresa, is that after... Has that been given now? Is that... Okay, great. Thank you. And again, these smaller subcommittees of the ambassador group really want to hear from the partners, really want to hear from you so that we can start creating some good opportunities and good materials and good resources so that we can get Globe really energized. So what we would ask is that, again, you complete the survey, and that this will also then be sent out to the larger group of partners. And again, it's focused primarily around the elementary piece. We also brainstormed as a smaller committee, what are some of the challenges that we're facing around Elementary Globe? So what we'd like to do is actually, if there are some folks here, to look at what are the challenges as you've tried to implement Elementary Globe. If you have in your partnership, what are some of those challenges that you've faced? And so I'd ask if we could get a recorder for that to actually have somebody. I thought Pat might be here, but she's not. Mike, great. All right, thank you. So as you look at what you've tried to do with Elementary Globe in your partnership, what kind of challenges have you really come up against? Or what are you facing? How many of you are actually implementing Elementary Globe, I guess, or parts of Globe in elementary setting? Okay, so what are the challenges that you're facing? Sure. Okay. I don't think the wirelesses are working. Are they working? Okay.
Is this just at the Elementary Globe program, or is this Globe at the elementary school?
So it's Globe at the school level. It's not necessarily Elementary Globe, but we would see that Elementary Globe is folded into part of that. Great. Thanks for the question. Okay. Sorry.
I just know that when we do training with elementary teachers, we do spend a lot more time on content than you would necessarily plan on in the original models of Training Club. And so one of the things that probably should be looked at, but it doesn't need to, if they're K4, you don't necessarily though need a scientist up there giving them all the information about pH. It needs to be trained at a level that makes sense for that teacher. And some of the training as it was done in the past is at too high a level for the elementary teacher, because they got to turn it around and they're not going to go into all the chemistry behind pH. They're just going to do something sort of basic, what high pH means, what low pH means, and so making sure that, and then also the other piece that which is probably specific to the elementary globe materials, most of my folks at least, we're not literacy people, and there's a huge literacy component, and being able to have a 20-minute crash course in what that's all about would be useful.
And just to add to that, in addition to literacy, probably ELL would be a big piece, especially at the elementary level.
So, Mike, I did science resource for elementary teachers for 16 years, and I kind of feel that while they may not need graduate level content, they need to understand the content to teach it well. So they do need to know what high pH and low pH means. They just need to know, they need to have practice and training in how to translate that to a developmentally appropriate delivery model. But they don't need to skip over the content to deliver a practice without understanding the content. Okay, good. Thank you.
So you can see on the survey here there are some challenges that are already listed. We'd like you to rank those ones in particular, but if you have other ones that you want to add, please do so.
I know that you all talked about data entry, but we primarily have Globe in K-8 in our state in Alabama. We're going to talk about it later this afternoon. But our biggest issue is that we have teachers doing Globe, but they're not going to enter data on that website. And I know you guys talked about that, but really and truly that's our number one issue.
Okay, I'm breaking all the rules because I wasn't on the mic, but what we're talking about, and I have fed back to the web design team as well, is if we had graphical tools for data entry, where students even at K1, 2, and 3 level could enter data, drag a picture of a cumulus cloud into a box. There's your cloud observation for today, and things like that.
Our biggest problem is getting administrative buy-in. We can get the teachers. Every time we sit the teachers down, they love the program, but they can't get the administrative backing to change their schedule a little bit, to get outside. They can't change the schedule. They can't incorporate, even the elementary Globe, some of the projects there, in a classroom base. In New York City, they use a cluster teacher who is a push-in 1 or 2 days a week. It's very hard for them to change the model. And we have elementary school teachers who want to change the model, but without administrative backing and buy-in to the program, we're dead in the water.
Can you talk about administrators? Is that principals or is it
Yes. It's both. It's on both levels. The principals aren't doing it because they're not getting looked at from above. The people above, it's off their radar. Very frustrating.
What's interesting is a lot of the systems pieces, we've been talking about that. I mean, even when the program started initially, back in '95, there were these questions around data entry and trying to get, actually have the students do it. And so at that younger grade level, how do you actually get students to enter data? And at a time when we had Fahrenheit and Celsius, that was even more interesting on the data entry. So it is something I know that the new systems team is certainly going to be looking at. Are there anything else in challenges?
I remember in some discussions earlier dealing with K4, one of the things that we noticed, I heard somebody comment that the data pages were too difficult for kids. And my initial reaction would be that they aren't. but when we did a correlation in Michigan to the Globe books, they tended to fit very well in our curriculum, mostly around first grade as far as the topics are concerned, and not much higher than third grade. It was more kindergarten, first, second, third, and a better match in first. And if that's similar in other states, that may be why there was some difficulty with the kids as far as dealing with data and the worksheets, because it's hard to come up with a program K4 that's appropriate K1, 2, and then 3, 4. I know there's difficulties there, but our teachers in Michigan, and we've done workshops with Elementary Globe, have been very positive and really like it, like the books, like the activities, and like to be part of that Globe community. They don't have any interest in updating any data because they see that they really don't in this particular project, but just wanted to share those comments.
So they don't enter data, but you don't think that it's related to the difficulty of the sheet? They wouldn't anyway. They would not. Okay, all right. And well, part of that question would be, should there be a different set of data entry pages specifically designed for the K4 audience? Because there's such a developmental and skill difference between that age group and higher age group. So it should be K3 and whatever, 4, 6, or right.
So somebody who's been thinking about but not yet able to figure out how to deliver Elementary Globe to my pre-service elementary teachers, one of the thoughts that I've been having is, why do maybe we need to have a global database of the elementary observations? Maybe what we should be thinking about is giving them the inquiry tools to keep their own local data and tracking their own local data. And then if we can improve the visualization of what other schools are doing at higher grade levels, they can use those data to compare with their simple observations they keep locally. So I'm thinking of it more as, how do I train my teachers to just do their own local inquiry and then be able to compare that to other things? And I haven't been able to answer that, so I haven't implemented it yet.
So is that a suggestion and a challenge, or okay? Okay.
So I guess my suggestion might be that one way to move forward with Elementary Globe is perhaps the data entry doesn't need to go nationally. Maybe they need to keep their data locally and learn how to do inquiry on their own data. And then if we have improved visualizations of what other people are collecting, they can go and grab, the middle school's data for longer term things and compare that to what the elementary students are doing themselves. That's so training elementary teachers on doing their own local inquiry, not worrying about loading the data up to a national database. That's the suggestion.
And so as we have a suggestion from Todd, maybe we should just flip over, and if there's any other suggestions, so that we continue, because I know we're on a tight deadline. So are there any other suggestions? And again, there are some listed here. If you would rank what you think might be the top 5, because we'd love to do everything, but we know that time and resources are limited, and so we'd like to get an idea from you what you might think the top 5 suggestions would be.
Mine is just a question of inquiry, and I'm wondering, because I don't know people personally, is your group of ambassadors or whatever that does elementary, is this committee made up of elementary specialists in inquiry, science, general learning, and literacy with experience, or is it or does it have an equal component of secondary teachers who have a vision of what elementary should do to make it continuous in their area? Because I do think teachers in elementary are teachers of science, where secondary teachers strike me as being science teachers, and I think there's a big difference. And there's a big difference in delivering inquiry from a secondary point of view because of the pedagogical level of where the kids are compared to what kids, and I'm looking at elementary as being more K to probably 6 are. And while one isn't necessarily better than the other or worse than the other, they are different ways of meeting kids at their level. And even though I think you can take things like the ESSPs and take a great deal of science that's in that and take an activity inquiry approach, so it's minds on and activity on, to develop with the kids. You might be using, like Deanna says, the same sorts of material but at a different level in the different activity base. Whereas if you take only a literary look at it, a literary, although important in elementary, is just like a piece of the puzzle that's there. And I'm wondering, when you structure your committees there, how do you structure with the balance on that, on different necessities for how you meet the kids at different ages and different levels, even according to Piaget and Duke?
Wow. Okay, that's a great question. I think when the committee was formed, right, from the ambassadors group, it was basically the people who are working with either pre-service elementary teachers or in-service elementary teachers. Is this gone? What we wanted to do was really push this out to the community to really get answers from the community on how we should do this, because the committee is really looking for the feedback. This is why we're doing this, from the community. So this survey will also go out to the other partners that are not here, to really look at some of these questions, because you raise a great point, Carol, about how do we really structure it so that it's seamless in many ways, how that training does become seamless between elementary and into the higher grade levels. But the committee really was looking at that lower K4, K3 kind of level, because we feel that there's a lost opportunity in really trying to engage and excite young kids so that we have a lot more alums that are actually interested in going on to STEM careers and so on, and you really have to start below that you really have to start below that 4th grade level for that to happen. But I think that's there isn't, for instance, a secondary committee within the ambassadors, and that might be something that Teresa might want to consider, is how would we have for the 6 through 12, and then maybe even breaking that down to middle school and high school, and maybe have that larger committee or those 3 different committees really work together to create a seamless transition in training, but also in the program itself. Does that make sense? And that might then flow over into the systems area as well, so that there might be some subdivisions or something for data entry or some of those areas where the most challenges are. John, I know you wanted to...
Obviously, when we talked about challenges, we talked a lot about data entry and the website. And as we're looking at doing the systems upgrade that I mentioned earlier, one technology that we're really struggling with, well, it's an opportunity, but figuring out how to best utilize it, is the use of mobile apps. And so it's a no-brainer in some areas of the world for more advanced audiences where they don't necessarily have computers with internet connectivity anymore, but almost everyone has a phone and now a smartphone. Developing such apps seems like something we need to really seriously explore. I'm wondering what you guys think in the North America for the K through 4 audience, if there's any applicability. Some of the tablet apps now, as Jerry mentioned, with really that high graphical design, allow early learners to do some pretty advanced work. But I know there's a lot of classroom realities with getting those tablets, having students use them. But thinking a couple years down the road, some more midterm, not near term, do you guys think that could be part of the answer? Is that worth exploring? Or are the complications with using those in classrooms just too high to explore, to make it worth exploring?
Yeah, the systems team. Thanks, Mitch. Thanks, John. There's a systems team that's also going to probably after lunch now, I'm assuming. Oh no, are we still? Oh, sorry. I thought it was 12. I thought it was 12:30. I don't know why. But there is within the ambassadors group, there's another group that's looking, a subcommittee that's looking at technology, and so that might be a good segue into that piece. And I know that we're trying to stay on schedule, but there was one other, and then maybe David.
I just wanted to mention with the next generation science standards, which I know are probably from the meeting I just came from, not going to be out for another 11 to 12 months. The framework's supposed to come out the end of April, then the committee will start their work. That should really be guiding our progression from K through 12. And I realize that kind of puts us in a holding pattern, but it just doesn't make sense. If all of our states are going to be aligning to that new document, we might as well align GLOBE to it, and that way we'll have our progression.
And that is one of the suggestions about aligning with Common Core standards. And we did have that.
It's called Next Generation. It's not called the Common Core. Just be careful with that. There's a political.
Thank you we will scratch that and put in. But not all the states, I think, are actually signing up. There's one or two that are not. Yeah.
But science is not going to be like the math, and I have a teacher's voice. Everybody can hear me. Okay. Science is not going to be like the Common Core in language arts and in mathematics. It's not necessarily going to be a state buy-in thing. It's being done by a different group. So I think it'll be more looking at, do states want to align to it? You're not going to have to join some group.
And then maybe the final comment from David.
It's always rough being the final comment. But I was thinking about what John was saying, and I don't think it would be that difficult. I know we're talking about apps in the next one, is to just take the Globe books that you have right now, make individual apps, even if they weren't quite as interactive, align those to activities. So regardless if they were K4 in school, that you'd have the whole informal citizen scientist family, that anybody could download the app, which would be maybe the soil book, the clouds book. They could read the book with their kids, maybe even do those activities, just a link to those sheets. And they wouldn't have to deal with uploading any data or sharing it. But I think it would be a nice family book and another way to share science under the title of Globe as well.
Great. Thanks, David. Lynn had wanted me to also discuss one other last piece, but we've run out of time. I think it's okay. It's workshop agendas, materials, and other information that might be pertinent if you wanted to do a workshop that was actually focused on the K4 level. And so I don't know if anybody would have any suggestions about doing that, or there is, for instance, an agenda that was in that other packet that you received around training agendas. So if you wanted to look at that, we could also take suggestions on the back sheet of that survey that I gave out if you wanted to write those suggestions on there. But I know this is kind of quick. Would anybody have any suggestions around offering Globe workshops at the elementary level, or any challenges that they found in the past around this, either for in-service or pre-service? Okay, well, I just wanted to reiterate here who the folks on the committee are. So Lynn Hare is the chair. Jennifer Bourgeau from New Hampshire is on there. Bob Ford, Alan, myself, and Pat Shane. So if you have any information, you should send it probably to Lynn as the chair about elementary, particularly K4, and any pieces that we've discussed. Please complete these so that we can get them back, and we will we will look at them as a committee and give a report out at some point to the community on what we found. And I think your suggestion is a good one that we would also add within the mix of the ambassador group. Great. Deanna?
I think it's so important to remember, maybe at the elementary school more than a middle or secondary school levels, is time. Because a Globe school that's implementing at elementary level this year, it may look different than next year or the year after, and there's cohort groups and peers that become more enthusiastic. So recognizing that getting started and then 3 years down the road can be very different for elementary